What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we're now 7 weeks away from The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom releasing, and there's still a lot of anticipation around just seeing more of the game on the run-up to its release. Well, it appears there are a lot of rumors and reports going around that we could see information as soon as tomorrow, and we're going to go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about Final Fantasy 16, as over the weekend we had an extended look at this game, and it's looking pretty good. And we're also be talking about the PlayStation 5. See, when it first came out, we obviously saw stocks being limited across the board to not available, and now we're to a point that Sony is actually discounting it. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps that a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And we're going to start today with the Nintendo Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS eShop closures. We've been obviously looking forward to this event for quite a while, as Nintendo did reveal with a good bit of time, like last year or so, that these would be shutting down. It's a big deal when they announced it, but it seems like everyone's kind of just accepted it, and they're looking towards tonight when these will be shutting down. And I mostly just wanted to remind everyone, just in case you were holding off to the very last minute to kind of browse the shops and see what you can find, there were a bunch of third-party developers that just kind of put their games on deep discount to where you could get some pretty good titles for a couple of dollars. So it might be worth going through, picking any of that up. And that also extends to any kind of downloadable content. Remember, all of this being attached to the eShop itself. It will be closing up 8 p.m. Eastern time tonight. I'm curious if anything comes of this. I don't know if it just go offline. There'll be an error code or some sort of message or something, but I'll keep an eye out for it. And if we have anything interesting happen other than it just shutting down with an error code, we'll talk about it tomorrow. Also, it's always fun when discoveries are made in games that are decades old. And in fact, the other day, it turns out Gran Turismo 4 does indeed have cheat codes. Now, if you're unfamiliar, maybe a bit younger, new to gaming, cheat codes are basically what publishers charge money for now through microtransactions. Gameplay advantages, costumes, unlockables, that sort of thing. But take a look at this. This posted up over on Twitter, and we can see this from Nenkai. Says, so many years and this game still holds surprises. Gran Turismo 4 does actually have cheat codes. And in fact, they go over many of them here in this thread, which I'll leave linked down below in the sources. Now, they do preface this saying that they only work if 365 game days have passed, so keep that in mind. But I mean, you can see 10 million credits. You can pass a license test. You can gold a specific license test if you'd like, gold any event, and obviously just ways to bypass or jump ahead or make yourself rich enough to buy whatever car you want here. As I mentioned, things that are charged now, as opposed to being a fun button combination that you have to kind of pass around at school or on the bus or just with friends occasionally. Or you'd buy those magazines or those books that had like 1,001 cheat codes in it. Those are the days. Oh, and with Resident Evil 4 now out, people are really enjoying this game, and I'm having a good time going through it with my first run so far. But there are some oddities with the game that appear to be set up for fixes with future patches. There was one that was being brought up a lot on the PS5, and just in case you did come across this, I wanted to point that out, which you can see this from Resident Evil. We're aware of an issue where players may experience flickering lights at the bottom of the screen when playing the PS5 version of Resident Evil 4. Here are some temporary fixes we recommend, and they do intend to fix the issue in a future update and apologize for any inconvenience. This is something I did see brought up quite a bit online, where they were trying to figure out if there was something wrong with their PlayStation 5, like the system itself. No, it appears to be just an issue with the game, something that they will be patching out here, I would figure, pretty soon. And they did give a few things you can play around with in the settings, things like motion blur, turn off and on. And then obviously if you left the game kind of in suspend mode through rest mode on the PS5, might not be a bad idea to save, close the game out completely, and then relaunch it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, a game people have been scouring the internet for any kind of information they can get. People are going through the trailers frame by frame to see if they can figure out any little thing about it. But it sounds like, based on some reports and rumors, we could be getting substantial information soon. Now, we can see this posted up over on My Nintendo News, where they say, rumor Tears of the Kingdom news could possibly be coming on Tuesday, that being tomorrow. Now, they do point to multiple YouTubers, and this appears to be from a couple of channels, Nintendo Prime, Mike Odyssey, Under Restart, to name a few there, and it seems to be coming out of PAX East, where at least one of them mentioned that they overheard it in conversation during PAX East with a certain source. All right, so Tears of the Kingdom was there, but not necessarily the game itself in a playable form, but that does mean that Nintendo thought enough to have at least some sort of presence there for marketing, obviously. And now with PAX East sort of out of the way, you kind of look towards the game release coming up, right? Like, you don't have any major events after PAX East that you consider to set up shop and have all kinds of stuff going with playable demos, etc. And it seems like now would actually be a good time to get the marketing push going. Now, if it's actually on Tuesday or not, it's hard to say. I know at different conventions like these, where you have a lot of the industry around it, developers, publishers, Nintendo, to some degree, obviously people are there to set up the entire stand and all of that so people can take pictures, but sure, there could be people in the know who are just hanging out talking about potential marketing runs for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, maybe even a trailer drop or a direct announcement. And, well, Tuesday is tomorrow, so we'll know pretty soon if this is an actual thing. But something tells me it's more likely than not, only because when are they going to start talking about this game? We're 7 weeks out from its release. Kind of start to narrow down that window. And remember, we had that Switch kind of leaked out online, the Tears of the Kingdom themed Switch. You want to have at least, I think, 6 weeks or so that retailers can have that set up with their orders and get things stocked, unless Nintendo just wants to handle it through their own store. And in that case, they can technically announce it whenever they want. But even for logistics, they want to at least give so long, and I think that's at least a month, which to me means there's like 2 or 3 weeks where they would really get things rolling. And yeah, it could be tomorrow. So keep an eye out, just keep expectations in check. Could legitimately just be another 1.5 minute trailer drop. But right now, for people who are scouring the internet, that may as well be an hour plus of gameplay footage. So guess we'll find out tomorrow what happens. Next up, let's talk about the PlayStation 5, specifically the stock situation and the price situation. That's one aspect to it that's been very odd for a console's life so far. Typically, you don't see a system release and then years later go up in price. You see it go the other way, right? The system will come out, maybe they'll do a little slim revision or something and start knocking the price down. PS5 went a bit different, right? Where they just started raising prices. A lot of it had to do with the exchange rate, economies, all kinds of different things when it comes to like finance and money side of things. But now we actually see a price drop somewhat on the PlayStation 5. Take a look at this over on PlayStation Direct, the store that Sony has through their website. You can see the PlayStation 5 console God of War Ragnarok bundle. This is the disc-based unit, marked from $560 down to $510. And this is going to be running for a couple of weeks now, actually up until April 16th. I double checked the digital version of it doesn't seem to be on sale, specifically at least from what I could tell at the time of this recording, is just the disc-based unit. And that's basically like, okay, I get the PS5 and then I got God of War Ragnarok, which is a fantastic game, for $10 more. And it doesn't really stop there, because Amazon, Walmart, I think even Best Buy decided to price match Sony. So you don't have to go through their PlayStation Direct store. You can just go over to Amazon, and right now they're just in stock. I noticed that if you have like Prime shipping, you can get a disc-based unit with God of War for $510, and it'll be delivered in 2 days. I think at one point when I was looking, it was next day shipping. So this is obviously huge turnaround from what we've been used to with the PlayStation 5, where it's just not in stock, prices are through the roof online, and you're not walking into a store just seeing one on store shelves. And now I have gone to a couple stores and seen a PS5. I've even seen a Series X, and the Series S is just always there. So it's feeling more and more like supply chain, logistics, all these different things are normalizing to where we can actually see the results. And the fact that a PS5, while it's not technically falling below the $500 MSRP, and this is kind of the old days where you would buy a system and it would just have a game bundled in as a special edition system that would still cost the same. It is nice to see it's actually working in the correct direction. And hey, if you don't have a PS5, this isn't a bad deal. right, for the disc-based unit with God of War Ragnarok, which right now that might be one of the better games to just show off what your PS5 can do visually and gameplay-wise and all of this. And if you're someone waiting for Final Fantasy 16, might be a good time to jump on the PS5. Next up, let's actually talk about Final Fantasy 16 because they had quite the showing over the weekend. This was at PAX East. There was about a 1-hour live stream where Yoshi P was up on stage in front of a live audience showing off the game. And I say that because we haven't really had a lot of live audience reactions to different showcases for games. It's all been a lot of pre-recorded stuff, obviously, for the last year and a half, maybe 2 years. But I really liked seeing just a live audience kind of reacting to all of this as it's going along. You get a lot of the oohs and ahs and the cheering as different parts, even going to the load screen or save game screen. They had little pixel representations for the characters, right? And the crowd got a little reaction out of that, nice little pop. It was just fun overall. Yoshi P kind of poking fun at different parts, like comments that were given to them, I assume from the internet, troll comments, and they were responding and having some fun with that too. Things like, oh, why isn't this turn-based? And basically tried to explain that, hey, we need to sell 10 to 15 million copies, and turn-based probably not going to do as well with the mainstream as the action that they're showing off, which very, very impressive stuff, because they decided to actually show gameplay, again, I know, shocking, of a game where they sat there with the controller and played it in real time, completely live. So they had battles going on. They also walked around in different environments, kind of exploring and showing off the world, because up until this point, we mostly just saw enclosed, kind of dark environments, like at night, pitch black. In this case, though, they walked around in some pretty large, vast-looking areas, bright daylight and everything. They also took some time just sort of introducing the game from the beginning. So if you've been hearing about Final Fantasy 16 and maybe you haven't gotten into Final Fantasy much, but some of the action, the combat caught your eye, you can go to the start of this live stream and Yoshi P just kind of explains the entirety of Final Fantasy 16 to get you caught up, the icons, and all of this, right? So it's looking really, really good. They also showed off some of the fast travel, which included the load times, to where they decided to count when the black screen came up until when it faded back in, and it was generally 2 to 4 seconds. So that is the nice thing. Something I definitely do not miss from previous generations is that load screen that could take 20, 30, 40 seconds at times. But definitely check out that live stream from Square Enix. There was a lot of really good information in there, and I'm just ready for Final Fantasy 16 at this point. I don't need to see anything else. I'm just ready for it to release June 22nd. We are less than 3 months away, and I absolutely cannot wait. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Sony and NFTs once again, because we had taken a look at a patent that was made public, filed back in 2021 for transferring NFTs between platforms. And now the picture around their plans are becoming a bit more clear with other patents that have been made public. For example, take a look at this one. It's titled Techniques for Predicting Value of NFTs. This once again applied for September 2021, and the publication date was March 23rd. So pretty recently. And their abstract is a non-fungible token, or NFT, associated with a computer game asset, can be offered to a player or spectator of a computer game along with a predicted value of the asset generated by a machine learning model. And in fact, if you look at some of the drawings, it does show off something like a sword, and then it goes through being able to receive predicted values, present predicted values on display, and then kind of work to figure out an overall summary of the value of that item that they can then present through, I guess, bids or an entire economy, potentially. If you look at some of the other images, they have estimated value for probability. I mean, this is interesting stuff. Even bids being placed on that item depending on dates and alerting you that you've been outbid and, the cost of what the winning bid was, kind of eBay-like almost. But these are for NFTs that would then work into, I assume, real-world money. Was Sony really getting that far in the weeds to where they were looking at how they could create their own digital economy around in-game items, that maybe something transfers from Ghost Tsushima over to Spider-Man somehow? It's all uncharted territory, and I'm not really sure how feasible a lot of that is, but if you could take an item, transfer it to a digital marketplace, sell it there, and then they could take that item and then transfer it into their same kind of copy of like Ghost of Tsushima as a sword, then technically Sony could run their own overall auction house. And that's sort of the conclusion a lot of people are kind of drawing from this as we are seeing more and more patents. Not necessarily that Sony is ready to do this at any time, more so that they did at least look into it, do some research, and thought out how they could accomplish it, and then maybe seeing things kind of take a turn for the worst when it came to crypto and NFTs and the economy, and they're just like, maybe not right now, but in the future, it does appear that they've done the research they could make a move on that. Is that something that maybe 10 or 15 years from now, we look back on and we're like, yeah, remember the days when we didn't have the ability to transfer digital assets around and sell them at will? I don't know, we'll see, but I gotta say, with AI and all this other stuff, with basically digital items that could be unique, future's gonna be an interesting place. Oh, and I do understand that NFTs, especially now, are just not at all popular. The PR around them are just not good, and that's why a lot of these companies distance themselves from it if it appears to have any kind of ties to the word NFT or phrase NFT. But if we ever get to that point where they do become relevant and used, they're just not going to call them NFTs. In fact, they might not call them anything. They'll just kind of present them as being able to trade in your games digitally or do other things in games, but the underlying technology very well may be this same thing. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're taking a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, with all the previews we now have, are you picking up Final Fantasy 16? 28% say yes, getting it ASAP. 29% say yes, but later when it goes on sale, and then 43% say no, I'm not interested. Now, I do understand that this also would rely on the fact that you would have a PlayStation 5 ready to go, and that's just not the case for everyone out there, at least at this time. I think when we get further into the PS5's, like, I feel like most people at least assume that the PS5 will get to that 100 million mark at some point. Maybe it'll be a bit easier to run these kind of polls then, but I also think Final Fantasy 16 could work to sell a lot of PlayStation 5s, especially with how some of these previews are showcasing this game. As I said, I'm really excited for it, and I have a feeling as we get closer and closer, and maybe we can get that demo, all of a sudden we're gonna see PS5 sales spike pretty heavily. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from the franchise saying, it's funny because people would have wanted Rocksteady Studios to make the Turtles game, but now it's Santa Monica who would be perfect for it, but I wouldn't want Rocksteady to have anything to do with it now. Rocksteady, they're going to be busy with Suicide Squad for a while, and I mean, the heads of the studio, Rocksteady, they're gone now, so who knows what that studio is going to look like whenever they start their next project, probably like 6 years from now, because they're going to be working to support Suicide Squad for a while, so who knows there. But you mentioned Santa Monica, or Sony Santa Monica, I guess, as being the studio that would then push towards doing this last Ronin game. The thing with that, I think it's because the God of War comparison was brought up, or at least what they are going to take inspiration from. I feel like they would want the company behind TMNT, Last Ronin, or whatever, I feel like they would want it to go on as many platforms as possible, and they would look for a more third-party studio or developer publisher that could handle something like that. Sort of like how Ubisoft is doing Avatar. So who knows where they go to, or I'm sure there are plenty of bids being placed now, but I am going to be absolutely fascinated when that studio gets announced, and then we can kind of draw a conclusion as to what this game could potentially look like probably 3 or 4 years from now. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today was The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. Are you expecting news this week with all of the rumors going around? And then also, what about Final Fantasy 16? Did you sit in during that PAX East live stream? And what are you thinking about this game heading into June? Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.